Hey everyone, this is Derrick Broze with the Conscious Resistance Network, and welcome to the 177th episode of the Conscious Resistance Live, the podcast where I break down the news from a non-biased, non-left and right perspective, trying to be as objective as possible and sift through the garbage from the corporate deadstream media as well as the mainstream alternative media, left and right, and show you guys what's really going on. So what's up, guys? It's been a while since I've done this podcast. I did one last month, and this is only the second one I've done in the new year. And it seems like I'm kind of on a new formula here where we're going to be doing the Conscious Resistance Live news breakdown, maybe once a month or so. You might remember at the end of 2025, I asked all of you what I should do in terms of going forward with the podcast. Should I make it once a week, continuing to do the news breakdowns? Should I focus on my activation podcast, which is more like my solutions focused interviews? Should we only do solutions talk like exit and build? Should I focus on my documentaries? And most of you said all of the above, but overwhelmingly you guys do want more solutions. So I'm excited about that. So this year you'll be hearing more about my Conscious Agora Eco Village project. I'll be interviewing some awesome people doing great projects and solutions. And maybe, as I said, once a month or so, we'll be doing the Conscious Resistance Live to break down the news that I think is important. And so today on the show, our main topics are going to be ICE, a little bit of an update on ICE since I last spoke to you guys, got a little brief story on Israel, and then the majority of the show is going to focus on the Epstein Files. And yes, I know there's Epstein Files news everywhere, but this is going to be hopefully different from what you're hearing because, for one, I'm in the Epstein Files briefly, at least my work is. We'll talk about that, as well as a potential connection that myself and others have been curious about and looking for years, a connection between the Finders cult and Jeffrey Epstein. And we'll see. I found something. I don't know what it is, but I found something. And then we're going to look at a few other pieces like this claim that Trump, is the hero in the story. And he told the police to go after Jeffrey Epstein, which is not true, but we're going to debunk that. And then a few other random pieces like the torture video, alleged coded journals discussing the Epstein victims having forced abortions, whether or not Epstein was actually shuffled out of the prison the night before he supposedly killed himself, and then some international fallout, what's going on in the UK, Norway, and Lithuania. And that's going to be it for today's show. So thank you guys for being here. Thanks for sticking around. As always, if you want to support our work, you can go to theconsciousresistance.com/invest, theconsciousresistance.com/invest. You can support me on Substack or buy me a coffee, all those platforms. That's the best way to do so. And of course, bookmark our website, theconsciousresistance.com. Guys, this is the place to get all of my content, including my recent podcast I've been doing, A Man of My Word, breaking down my new memoir, recent interviews I did on the Kim Iverson show, on Jimmy Dore, as well as my own interview with Ron Paul. And I'll be appearing on Redacted this week as well, talking about the Pyramid of Power. So that's the best place if you want to keep up with all of my work. And I appreciate those of you who do. Now, one thing before we do jump right into the news story, I just want to mention that the People's Reset, the event I host every January in Morelia, Mexico, it just happened. It's been, I guess, 2 weeks now. And it was an amazing time. Just big thank you to everybody who was in person, all of you who watched online. I know you guys get great value, and stay tuned. We're going to be releasing my talk from the People's Reset. Will be coming out later this week, as well as all the other talks at the People's Reset Odyssey channel and elsewhere. And if you are wanting to come to the activation next year, if you watched it online or you came in 2026 or you've come in the past and you want to come back, tickets are on sale right now until February 20th. They're only 144 USD. That's the best price that's going to be available. And then after the 20th of February, they're going to go off sale until October. They'll come back and they'll be a different price. But if you want to get tickets now, I encourage you to do so, guys. If you're ready to come out from behind the computer screen, from behind your phone, get connected in person with people who are actually focused on getting activated, not just being awake, but actively working on the future of humanity, well, you're going to want to join us at the People's Reset next year. So thank you guys for that. All right, let's go ahead and jump into it. As I said, we're going to talk about a couple of ICE stories. This one is coming from the New York Times, and it's been reported elsewhere. They're not the only one. So for those of you who are saying, Derrick, the New York Times, come on. Well, it is verified news. Homeland Security wants social media sites to expose anti-ICE accounts. The department has sent Google, Meta, and other companies hundreds of subpoenas for information on accounts that track or comment on immigrations and customs enforcement, officials and tech workers said. The Department of Homeland Security is expanding its efforts to identify Americans who oppose ICE by sending tech companies legal requests for the names, email addresses, phone numbers, and other identifying data behind social media accounts that track or criticize the agency. In recent months, Google, Reddit, Discord, and Meta, which owns Facebook and Instagram, have received hundreds of administrative subpoenas from the DHS, according to 4 government officials and tech employees privy to the requests. They spoke on the condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to speak publicly. Google, Meta, and Reddit complied with some of the requests, the government officials said. In the subpoenas, the department asked the companies for identifying details of accounts that do not have a real person's name attached. So basically, they're going after anonymous accounts and asking them to give them all the data. These are anonymous accounts that have criticized ICE or pointed to the locations of ICE agents. And apparently the New York Times actually saw 2 of these subpoenas. Now, sidebar, I wish this is one problem with the corporate media. It's like if you saw the subpoenas and maybe your sources wouldn't let you take a picture or give you a copy, but if they did, it would be nice to show it to the public. The tech companies, which can choose whether or not to provide the information, have said that they typically review government requests before complying. Some of the companies notified the people whom the government had requested data on and gave them 10 to 14 days to fight the subpoena in court. So pretty much somebody will get a message from the government saying, hey, or from one of these social media platforms saying, hey, the government has requested your data. You have 10 to 14 days to appeal this or to fight the subpoena. Otherwise, we're going to give them your data. And a Google spokeswoman said, when we receive a subpoena, our review process is designed to protect user privacy while meeting our legal obligations. We inform users when their accounts have been subpoenaed, unless under legal order not to or in exceptional circumstances. We review every legal demand and push back against those that are overbroad. The Trump administration has aggressively tried to tamp down criticism of ICE by identifying Americans who have demonstrated against the agency. ICE agents told protesters in Minneapolis and Chicago they were being recorded and identified with facial recognition last month. And Tom Homan, the White House border czar, also said on Fox that he was pushing to create a database of people who were arrested for interference, impeding, and assault. Now, that's one thing if these people are legitimately violent against ICE agents, which I can empathize with, but I don't think is a wise strategy. But it's a whole different thing if people are just posting about ICE and saying, hey, ICE is in this location, ICE is over here, or, fuck ICE, or whatever it may be. And it's interesting. It says some social media companies previously fought government requests for user information. In 2017, Twitter, they actually sued the federal government to stop an administrative subpoena that asked it to unmask an account that was critical of the Trump administration. So the Trump administration subpoenas for this account, Twitter sues them, and then they back off. But these days, it seems like they're all but compliant with the Trump administration. And the difference between an arrest warrant and an administrative subpoena is that the arrest warrant does require a judge's approval. In this case, DHS basically issues subpoenas and sends them to the companies, and the companies, maybe out of fear, they comply, or just because they already have a relationship with the government. And they were previously only used sparingly in the past to uncover people behind social media accounts engaged in serious crimes like trafficking. But last year, the department ramped up its use of subpoenas to unmask anonymous social media accounts. And so they go through here and give some more examples. But just FYI, the government is trying to unmask you if you're operating anonymously or even pseudo-anonymously on the internet. And, they're going to be out there trying to get your data. They're going to try to find out more about you. So be careful out there in the internet. Another big one here, ICE says federal agents appear to have lied about confrontation that led to shooting. Imagine that, ICE officers, ICE agents lying. This is what many of us have said. You can't trust them because, well, when we saw the shooting of Alex Preddy and Renee Good, and we saw how Kristi Noem and Trump and others immediately rushed to say they're domestic terrorists, they're violent, they were lashing out at the officers, they were doing all these things that I think the average person could see was not true. They tried to defame these people. And so this one is a new story coming showing that two ICE agents did lie in a federal courtroom. ICE says federal agents appear to have lied about confrontation. Now, this was a different shooting. This wasn't Renee Good. This wasn't Alex Preddy. Yes, there have been multiple shootings. This one did not end in a death, thankfully. But it says 2 federal officers appear to have lied about an incident last month in Minneapolis that ended with one of them shooting a Venezuelan immigrant in the leg, ICE Acting Director Todd Lyons said on Friday. The two officers are under investigation by the Justice Department. The announcement comes one day after federal prosecutors dropped the criminal cases against two immigrants in connection with the January 14th episode. DHS leaders, including Kristi Noem, had previously defended the officers, saying that they had fended off a, quote, attempted murder, and that one officer had fired in self-defense. So they rushed to immediately defend the officer, even without knowing the facts of the case. And that's probably just stereotypical, unfortunately, is that the cops, whether they're ICE or your local police, they're a gang. They have a gang mentality. They act in, they're going to protect each other. And then later on, as evidence comes out, they're forced to backtrack. So Todd Lyons, the acting director of ICE, said, quote, a joint review by ICE and the Department of Justice of video evidence has revealed that sworn testimony provided by two separate officers appears to have made untruthful statements. Both officers have been immediately placed on administrative leave pending the completion of a thorough internal investigation. The U.S. Attorney's Office is actively investigating these false statements. Agents had initially said that the two men assaulted them with a broom and a shovel before one of them before one of the men was shot by ICE. But that account was quickly called into question, and prosecutors now say that newly discovered evidence contradict the officer's story. They just found new evidence randomly, and that's probably means that they just realized that, hey, we just knee-jerk reacted and defended our guys when they were up to some shady shit. Local law enforcement and prosecutors are also investigating the incident. The reversal by ICE comes a day after the White House announced it was ending its surge of federal immigration enforcement officers in the Twin Cities, and after a judge exorciated the Trump administration for violating rights of immigration detainees held at a local facility. So they're getting it all kinds of ways. And I had talked about this recently. I posted on social media that whether or not you like it, I do like it. I think it is a good thing that, that Greg Bovino, the former leader of ICE, was sent packing back to California out of Minnesota. Tom Homan announced that there's a drawdown of ICE's surge in Minneapolis. And then things like this, where they're admitting they lied in certain cases. These are positive developments because it shows that, for one, the pressure, the activism, the protest in Minneapolis and elsewhere, they do have an impact. And it shows that despite many concerns about Trump's rising authoritarianism, that the levers of government for the moment are at least still responsive to the people, because they had to see the writing on the wall. Like 2 Americans were killed. The polls numbers are showing Trump's ICE program is not popular except for the most right-wing extremists. Most people thought they were just going to be going after violent criminals, not after the local maid or the local, cook or something like that. And that it seems like the average person doesn't want people to be accosted violently on the streets, even if they came illegally. I know some of you are like, who cares? I don't care if they've been here 30, 40, 50, 60, their whole life. If they've been here and they came illegally and they never committed a crime and they've been paying taxes and being a good upstanding citizen, screw them, send them back. That seems to be the mentality of some of you. But it seems like the average American is more like, I don't like the violence in the street. I don't like the militarization. I don't like the things we're seeing. So overall, I think these are little victories that we should take to heart. And that is because, well, like I said, that the average American doesn't seem like they want to just take the bullshit that they're feeding them, and they're actually interested in. And if even those who do support deportations, they want it to be done in a way that doesn't look like what Trump's been doing. And yes, I know people will say, well, Obama did even more of this. That's great. People were protesting it then. But the big difference between anything Obama did or Biden or any other previous administration, including Trump's first administration, is they weren't acting so violently, authoritarian, militarization of the streets, stopping Americans, questioning them. That it's the optics of the whole situation. So yeah, and there's more to the situation. The article will be in the show notes, but it's good that at least in this incident, ICE agents are being outed as having lied, and hopefully there will be actual legal repercussions for them. One more here on ICE, just for those of you who aren't really paying attention. This is being reported by the New York Times, but it's being reported elsewhere. I just want to get out of here. ICE is detaining hundreds of children. The number of children in immigration detention has spiked since last year. Families describe poor conditions and little education. Now, let me go ahead and just address the bigots in the room right away and say, okay, I get some of you are going to say, Derrick, I don't care. They're illegals, so they don't have a right to, to education, or they shouldn't expect to be treated, with the best housing and things like that. This is the cost of coming to the country illegally. And I get that some of you feel that way. But again, I don't think the average person does feel that way, especially when it comes to children. Because if I remember correctly, it was the right wing who just a year ago, 2 years ago, was talking about how under Biden, all these children have been trafficked. I've reported on this, how there was allegedly hundreds of thousands of missing children that were coming in through the immigration system and are being shipped all over the place. Well, now a lot of children are being detained in these really crappy, facilities that some would call internment camps or temporary detention camps. And the conditions are not great, guys. So if you care about children on one instance, you should care about children across all situations. It's not just, oh, I'm just going to use children as a way to score virtue signaling points when the other side's in power and call them out. But then when it's my quote unquote side, I'm going to do nothing but just sit here and stay silent. So you can read that in the show notes if you want to get that one. But it kind of ties into this next and final story on ICE. This is from Bloomberg. ICE begins buying mega warehouses, detention centers across the United States. Plan for such centers and jails in nearly 24 communities have sparked protests over suitability, proximity to homes and schools. Wow. So it's getting to this point now. And are these the FEMA camps we heard about for so many years? Are these the FEMA camps that people like Alex Jones were warning about and now stay silent as the authoritarianism rises? Let's check it out. Plans for such centers and jails in nearly 24 communities have sparked protests, as we said. Despite protests in small towns and cities across the U.S., the Trump administration is pushing ahead with the purchase of warehouses it plans to convert into immigration jails and what could be the largest expansion of such detention capacity in U.S. history. And of course, all of this is being funded by private prisons, which I talked about and warned about prior to the election, how the private prison industry was going to benefit handsomely during Trump's administration. And well, here you go. The cost for acquiring 2 warehouses alone was $172 million. A third in El Paso could be among the largest jails of any kind in the country, if completed as envisioned with 8,500 beds. The deal marks the latest turn in ICE plan to use as many 23 warehouses for detaining thousands of immigrants arrested by federal agents in Minneapolis and other cities. Those aggressive enforcement actions have ignited clashes with protesters and led to actions to like I said, the 2 people being killed. On January 16th, the administration paid $102 million for a site near Hagerstown, Maryland, according to a local court filing. A week later, the court paid $70 million in cash for a warehouse in Surprise, Arizona. The price tags, roughly in line with the industry average for the warehouse market, covered just the acquisition of the site, which are currently empty shells. ICE still has to pay companies to outfit the buildings with toilets, showers, beds, dining, and recreation areas, and then run them as detention centers. The El Paso site was purchased by DHS, according to people familiar with the transaction, but the sale price has not been made public. And so there's more. They just go into this describing the different places. ICE pivots to warehouses identified by ICE to convert to immigration detention facilities. And you can see some areas like Hutchins, Texas, up north Texas, are planning for 9,500 beds. So some of these places are going to be massive with thousands of people just stuffed inside of them, and including probably children. And you can see there's pockets of them around the country. Texas is definitely one of the big spots. Mississippi, Missouri, Utah, over there in Pennsylvania, PA, DC area. There's going to be a lot of them. So we'll keep our eye on this, guys. ICE is buying warehouse detention facilities. And the question comes up. I've seen people ask it as I've posted this online on social media. Is this really for immigrants, or is this going to be used on Americans? Like, could they be using all that Palantir technology they developed to start identifying Americans who are opposed to ICE or opposed to other agendas, or just general, dissidents, and use these facilities to hold them? That's been the big fear, right? Like I said earlier, this is something that the right wing was warning about for decades, including people like Alex Jones, and they seem to be silent now these days as we're actually marching closer in that direction. And this is, of course, not just because the right is the bad guys. And I know that some of my friends or colleagues who lean more left sometimes, I think, fall into that false dichotomy. No, it's the fact that both left and right pass the baton of tyranny back and forth, where one side passes certain bills and agendas and the other side goes and advances in a different direction. Like, obviously right now, the left, the progressives, Democrats, etc., are against ICE and everything that's happening. But they were pretty silent when it came to vaccine mandates and quarantine camps and things like that. So it's a different issue, but it's the same goal: is how do you get people to be locked up and put away if they have a different opinion, or if they're opposing the agenda, whether it's coming from Democrats or Republicans, whether it's coming because of an alleged pandemic, or it's coming because a surge of illegal immigration. The end goal is militarization, police state, and technocracy. And Donald Trump is doing a great job of advancing that agenda. All right, so let's go ahead and continue with our next story. And this one is going to be more related to what's going on in Israel. This is just a report that came out from Al Jazeera. It's only been reported by Al Jazeera, so I don't think it's been confirmed elsewhere. But I think it's worth looking at because, well, if you understand that Al Jazeera has done some good work, of course, they've got their own funding and concerns and things like that. But let's take a look at it. Israel used weapons in Gaza that made thousands of Palestinians evaporate. Al Jazeera investigation reveals how U.S. supplied thermal and thermobaric munitions burning at 3,500 Celsius have left no trace of nearly 3,000 Palestinians. And that sounds just as messed up as it is. At dawn on August 10th, 2024, Yasmin Mahini walked through the smoking ruins of Al-Tabin school in Gaza City, searching for her son, Saad. She found her husband screaming, but of Saad there was no trace. I went into the mosque and found myself stepping on fresh flesh and blood, Mahini told Al Jazeera Arabic for an investigation that aired on Monday. She searched hospitals and morgues for days. We found nothing of Saad, not even a body to bury. That was the hardest part. Mahini is one of the thousands of Palestinians whose loved ones have simply vanished during Israel's genocidal war on Gaza, which has killed more than 72,000 people. That's according to them. Obviously, there's different claims. According to the Al Jazeera Arabic investigation, the rest of the story, civil defense teams in Gaza have documented 2,842 Palestinians who have, quote, evaporated since the war began in October 2023, leaving behind no remains other than blood spray or small fragments of flesh. Experts and witnesses attributed this phenomenon to Israel's systematic use of internationally prohibited thermal and thermobaric weapons, often referred to as vacuum or aerosol bombs, capable of generating temperatures exceeding 3,500 degrees Celsius or 6,332 degrees Fahrenheit. The figure of 2,842 is not an estimate, but the result of grim forensic accounting by Gaza's civil defense. Spokesperson Mahmoud Bazel explained to Al Jazeera that the teams use a method of elimination at strike sites. We enter a targeted home and cross-reference the known number of occupants with the bodies recovered. If a family tells us there were 5 people inside and we only recovered 3 intact bodies, we treat the remaining 2 as evaporated only after an exhaustive search yields nothing but biological traces, blood spray on walls, or small fragments like scalps. Jesus. The investigation detailed how specific chemical compositions in Israel's munitions turn human bodies into ash in seconds. A Russian military expert, Vasily Fatigarov, explained that thermobaric weapons do not just kill, they obliterate matter. Unlike conventional explosives, these weapons disperse a cloud of fuel that ignites to create an enormous fireball and vacuum effect. To prolong the burning time, powders of aluminum, magnesium, and titanium are added to the chemical mixture. This raises the temperature of the explosion between 2,500 and 3,000 degrees. According to the investigation, this intense heat is often generated by tritonol, a mixture of TNT and aluminum powder used in U.S.-made bombs like the MK-84. And they show a picture of a crater caused by Israeli strike that just dropped a major bomb there. Dr. Munir al-Bursh, Director General of the Palestinian Ministry of Health in Gaza, explained the biological impact of such extreme heat on the body. The boiling point of water is 100 degrees Celsius. When a body is exposed to energy exceeding 3,000 degrees combined with massive pressure and oxidation, the fluid boils instantly. The tissue vaporizes and turns to ash. It is chemically inevitable. So it's like being blown up, vaporized from the inside. And they go through here describing some of the bombs, and how this is being funded by the U.S. and there's no international justice. Just another disturbing part of the Israeli genocide, which is being supported by people from all around the world, including the United States and all the so-called Western democracies. And as we know, the Israeli nation is definitely tied to the whole Epstein scandal, despite some people trying to deny it. It is absolutely a part of that, as we know by Epstein's relationship with Ehud Barak, former defense minister, and other officials there, and even claims within the new Epstein emails that Epstein and the Trump administration have been compromised by Israel. There's a lot there, but this is just one more piece of the puzzle, guys. So don't forget that this is still happening. It's still ongoing. Trump and his cronies are installing their technocratic Board of Peace, this Orwellian named Board of Peace, and they're going to carve up Gaza and make it friendly for their buddies and basically just bad for everybody else. But we'll keep an eye on that as it develops. All right, so our next story and final story for the day, it's going to be a lot of stories, but it's all related to Epstein for the rest of the show. And I'm going to try to focus on things that you're probably not hearing elsewhere on every other platform and podcast right now, including this first one, which is that I was in the Epstein Files, or my work was in the Epstein Files. Don't freak out. No, I didn't go to Jeffrey Epstein's house or anything like that, but my work was listed in the Jeffrey Epstein Files. Still trying to figure out why. So this is an email you can find on the DOJ website from a Ronald Weiser. Ronald Weiser, former Republican politician. You can see there in his email, he says, Ambassador Ronald Weiser, retired, donated to Donald Trump during the 2016 and I think 2020 elections. This is an email that was forwarded to him by a Larry Brayboy. As you can see, their names are not redacted. And from what I've been able to find out, Larry Brayboy is like a minister, a pastor. I think he's still alive, maybe has just died. And he forwarded this whole thing to all kinds of people, and American Muslims for Palestine, Women's March, U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights, Standing Rock Sioux Tribe. So it seems like a mix of activists and people he knew. He just forwarded this whole long email to them. And the email originally came from Forbidden Knowledge TV to, I believe, Larry Brayboy, even though they have it blacked out. And this is November 29, 2018. This is 3 weeks after my documentary Bringing Down Jeffrey Epstein had come out. And this is the website forbiddenknowledge.tv, basically sharing it and promoting it, which I'm grateful for. And they talk about all the things going on with Epstein at the time. It says, this video by the Conscious Resistance gives a good summary of the story and the imminent court case. And then that email got forwarded to Larry Brayboy. Larry Brayboy sent it to a whole bunch of people. And then from there, it got sent from Ronald Weiser to somebody who is redacted. So we don't know who this redacted name is that it actually was sent to. That's kind of the thing. So we know who it came from, where it originated from, but not to why, where it was going. And the other thing is Ronald Weiser, as far as we know, he has no publicly documented connection to Jeffrey Epstein. This isn't an email to Jeffrey Epstein. Otherwise, we would see that in the address there. So I don't know why this is even included. And if you search Ronald Weiser in the DOJ files, you will see other emails that he sent related to Jeffrey Epstein. It seems like he was just kind of keeping up with the case and following articles and things like that about Jeffrey Epstein. But still, I don't know why. Why did the DOJ or the FBI or other agencies start looking at his emails for them to be included in here? I mean, I know they're casting a pretty wide net, but I don't know yet. And Ronald Weiser, I haven't been able to reach him to contact him and ask him about that. But what he said was weird stuff, best regards, when he was forwarding my documentary to whoever. So that's interesting. And you might have heard me talking about that, but that's the first little nugget there. Not a big story, but just, yeah, I'm in the documents. You can find me in there. Like Ron Paul, I'm one of the few people who are mentioned briefly, but not in a bad way of like, hey, I'm involved in some shady stuff. I knew Epstein and I was doing bad things. Nope. My work is in there because I was exposing and working on bringing down Jeffrey Epstein way back in 2018. So that's just a weird thing. But the next one is related to my work on the Finders. For years, many of us who've been investigating the Finders cult have wondered if there is some kind of connection, whether tangential or direct, to the Epstein network from the Finders cult. And if you don't know about the Finders cult, go to theconsciousresistance.com and visit my documentary. All of the reports I've done over the years where I was investigating the Finders, from my original 7-part investigation to the documentary to my subsequent reports, to the fact that shortly after my documentary, the FBI started dropping a bunch of documents relating to the Finders. And we've learned so many things over the years. But that has been one of the threads, the questions people have been asking, like, is there some connection to the Epstein network and the Finders cult? Again, maybe it's not in those terms where you're going to find a document that says the Finders cult evolved into Ghislaine Maxwell, Robert Maxwell, Jean-Luc Brunel, Epstein, etc. But still, there have been wonders and concerns if there is some connection. So I started to go to the Epstein Files and I searched the Finders, just, see what popped up with the Finders. And when I did, I found some interesting things. So this is what this next story is all about. I found this one website called finderscourse.com, which, as you see here, it's kind of not all showing up that great. But it's a website by the Willow Group Incorporated, and I haven't been able to find anything about them, that claims to be, about helping mental clarity. They talk about seekers and peakers. Interestingly, there used to be a cult called the Seekers, and some people believe the Finders' original name was the Seekers. But this whole thing is all about, elevating human consciousness. And look at the website, as you can see, it's not even it's really not even there anymore. I think that most of it has just been kind of deleted. You can find different things in the Wayback Machine. Like this whole page is pretty much blank. I'm also using a privacy browser, so it's probably blocking some of it. But the point is, it seems kind of new agey, talking about like mental clarity and how you can become a finder by taking the Finders course, where seekers find. Kind of interesting. And the reason this came up is because when I searched the Finders, this man, Dr. Jeffrey A. Martin, who they say is the director for the Center for the Study of Non-Symbolic Consciousness, research professor at the Transformative Technology Lab of Sophia University, which is just a bunch of different, he's involved in technology, psychology, cognitive science, neuroscience, allegedly a best-selling author, an award-winning educator. I think this guy is just a lot of fluff, and he's kind of pumping himself up. You can see there's like a TED Talk he did. He's been featured at Deepak Chopra's Scientists and Sages conference. He was covered by the South China Morning Post one time. He's the founding director of the Center for Study of Non-Symbolic Consciousness, which doesn't seem to be anything. So he started a bunch of organizations, and he's the head of them. It makes him sound like he's really, doing something special. But I found it interesting when I was searching for the Finders that it leads to this guy and his Finders course. Now, again, I haven't found anything that directly connects Jeffrey A. Martin to the original Finders, but a lot of the language and things he discussed, it really does mirror some of the things we know about the original Finders cult and Marion Petty, how they talked about, and even my interviews with Robert Terrell, who was the right-hand man of Marion Petty, who worked with him directly. And basically, there's sort of efforts to elevate consciousness. At least that's the way that they pretended. They said we were just a radical group, that were trying to do things better than previous generations and raise kids independently and stuff like that. There's definitely some overlap in the type of language about of transformation. And it also kind of goes back to the human potential movement. That's a whole other conversation. But nevertheless, I started searching for Jeffrey A. Martin after I found him listed in the Epstein Files. And there's a bunch of different mentions, but I'm going to show you the ones that I think are worth looking at. This is an email between Jeffrey A. Martin on Monday, June 12, 2017. So this is well after Jeffrey Epstein had been arrested in the original arrest, and well after we know that Jeffrey Epstein was involved in shady shit. And Jeffrey A. Martin apparently didn't care. Hi, Jeffrey. Sorry for the delay. It's a bit crazy here. I'm still looking for a schedule hole with New Mexico overlap. My Skype is here. Hi, Jeffrey. I'm in Shanghai to speak at a couple conferences, then in India. And so there, it's showing him he's trying to connect with Epstein and get him on a call to do Skype. And then goes back and forth. Jeffrey Epstein says, Skype, JEE vacation, which was Jeffrey Epstein's Skype name. Are you in New York anytime soon? And then it shows how basically these two men were connected by Deepak Chopra. And you can see how the email from Jeffrey Martin is saying, thanks, Deepak. Hope you're enjoying TSC. Hi, Jeff. Your name has crossed my path several times in recent years. It's nice to finally connect. Much love, Jeffrey. And so again, Deepak Chopra was the one who connected the two of them together. We don't know where it went. We can see over the years that Jeffrey A. Martin is clearly trying to get Epstein's attention, and Epstein is on his email list. That's how I first found the Finders when I searched for it, is that Jeffrey Epstein was on that Finders course mailing list. But then I started searching Jeffrey A. Martin, and you find these private communications between the two men. This is happening shortly after the last one. This is Skype between Jeffrey Epstein and Jeffrey A. Martin. Jeffrey Epstein said, how did great Steve go? It's going great, thanks. Another moving wall experience, though this less extreme this time. Any wall experience qualifies as good, as long as you're not running into it. I've been thinking about our conversation. If you have someone walk through a wall in front of you, what will you do with it? Epstein says, I've had 40 or more individuals, none except Deepak's last person, did anything close to what you described. It's not Elon as far as we know, it's somebody else, held his hand in front of mine and I could feel a buzzing in mine. Great. Jeffrey A. Martin, that seems pretty simple. I view nothing as out of bounds. I would look for mechanism, just like telepathy. This is Epstein. Maybe it's something we don't have an explanation for, but it's merely counterintuitive. So they're talking about telepathy. They're talking about like spiritual kind of paranormal experiences. And Epstein says, would you like to Skype? I'm not good at typing. Give me a couple of minutes. I just finished the treatment here. Nothing more remarkable than the lives that you and I live. This is more rare and odd that it is so compared to most. And that's Epstein telling him that. And then Jeffrey A. Martin, he goes ahead and points out a name, Ravi Mantha. We're going to search that real quick just so I can show you who this guy is. He's an Indian politician, Indian businessman, excuse me, who is also being outed in the Epstein Files. He was an advisor to Modi and India. If you search Ravi Mantha and Epstein, you'll see that he's been in the news lately. He's kind of having his own issues over there in India, and Hyderabad businessman Ravi Mantha linked to Epstein Files. So it's interesting. This businessman from India who's in the Epstein Files, Jeffrey A. Martin says Ravi Mantha, and then there's a whole redacted sentence, and then something redacted, and then room 304. Epstein says, I cannot get through. Hi, Jeffrey, check your email and this will make sense. Username, jmje@protonmail.com. Hope all is great. I'm just in a brief moment online, then we'll be offline again. Can't log in, says incorrect. Now, this is where it's interesting that Epstein, basically Jeffrey A. Martin had created an email address on Proton Mail for Jeffrey Epstein, and he's sort of like telling him how to use it. And basically he was telling him like, I'm going to send the password to your Skype. I'm going to send this, as I'll show you guys in a moment. This guy was clearly worried about his communications later on being read. He says, he's talking about meeting up with people. I'm back in the US. Now it's your turn. But that was just the first notification of this Jeffrey Epstein email, Proton Mail. And he's telling him like something about room 304. It appears from what I can tell that they were trying to meet up in person. So let's go on further. Jeffrey A. Martin on June 21st, 2017. Here's the full signature from the manager's emails. Headed to bed tonight, but you're entirely too interesting for the universe to keep us apart much longer. Call anytime. If I'm in the room, I answer. In 1 hour, if it's okay with you. So, they're trying to connect while he's in that hotel room. Then it goes here. This is July 2nd, 2017. Jeffrey Martin to Jeffrey Epstein. Hi, Jeffrey. I've been thinking about you and your quest for an experience that can lead to a mechanism. Qigong isn't surprising, giving Shinlin's frustrations with this research in that area. What other things have you tried to find it with? Any similar projects? And we don't know what he's trying to find, but he's trying to find some type of experience. I assume probably the equally unimpressive parapsychology world at a minimum. Also, who were the 40 or so people you've tried so far? Ballpark is fine for more than a list. Though if you have kept a list, that is okay. I'm just trying to get a sense of the dry holes dotting your landscape so far. And Epstein says, here's the things he's tried. Brain work, extensive imaging, Harvard, psychology, fMRI, EEG, complex systems, artificial life, Santa Fe Institute, Qi, Tsinghua University, acupuncture, large groups, MGH, kinesiology, NYU, Chinese herbal medicines, placebo, Karolinska, Harvard, illusions, optical, oral, perceptual. But at the end of this, zero impact and much blah, blah. That's why I'm always open to controlled experiments. So Epstein was clearly interested in the paranormal sort of, edge of research, as we know with transhumanism and other things. Now, this is Dr. Jeffrey Martin emailing Jeffrey Epstein. The can't miss conference of the year if you're into consciousness. Hi, Jeffrey. Next weekend, I'll be keynoting one of the coolest and most mind-blowing conferences in the consciousness space if you're in Chicago, and you should definitely come. And so he goes on there talking about, again, he's like telling Epstein this is about the Psychotronics Association annual conference. More discussions on that. Then July 12th, 2017, Jeffrey Martin to Jeffrey Epstein. Hi, Jeffrey. Given your interest in the stranger aspects of my PNSE research, a lot of thought while here in India. You seem to get sued a lot. And this is where he wants to hide his information. He says, you seem to get sued a lot, and I don't like documents showing up in discovery processes. I've written up my thoughts on what you're interested in, created an account on a secure email service, and had that account send an email to itself. That's about as safe as information transfer gets in our age. To read it, just log into the same account. I'll send you the username via Skype so the full login isn't in one message. So please don't forward it or save a local copy. You can find it here. So he tells Epstein, go to Proton Mail, log in. The username is in his Skype chat. and then use this password. And guys, I've tried this. I've tried this. I don't think this account exists anymore, but I've gone to Proton Mail and I've used the JME at Proton Mail that he showed in the other messages. And I've used this password and I've tried numerous times and different variations. It didn't work. But he says, when you're reviewed it enough, just delete the message. I'll come along later and close the account. So he probably did close the account, as he said there, but it clearly shows that there was a Proton Mail that this Jeffrey A. Martin created just for him and Jeffrey Epstein to privately communicate, because he was worried some things were going to show up in documents like this. So yeah, and this is just them again talking about all kinds of shady, not shady necessarily, but about being interested in PNE research and telepathy and stuff like that. Now this is Skype messages between the two of them and more people, but Jeffrey A. Martin's listed in here like 30 times. Jeffrey Martin headed back to Albuquerque from the 18th to the 14th if you're around. Epstein, Epstein says, possible, just left yesterday from there. Just let me know if you pop back. I'm going to do a bit of research on Amma and Santa Fe for a couple days. Did you see her there? She can produce interesting effects on, for, in front of some people. Never saw, Jeffrey says. Might consider it. Not sure when she's there, just if there's an overlap. So they go back and forth again. There's nothing really groundbreaking here, but it's just showing that they're talking about sort of different types of technology. Jeffrey Martin says to Jeffrey Epstein, we've been working with some new non-invasive brain stem tech that increases this by double-digit percentages. I've been selling it to top people in the Valley whose jobs relate to this, but hadn't thought about finance-related people. It's a side thing of another much more important project, so it hasn't gotten much thought other than using it to bring in big blocks of cash from the Valley. What it does is largely considered impossible. Having said that, the military will be a big customer because they have a related problem with soldiers not being able to tell who the enemy are in civilian villages. It's getting training improvements 20 to 30% for the right now. Seems completely impossible to them. And so he's talking about spotting difficult to find patterns in the world. Like, how do you do that? And they have some sort of non-invasive brain stimulation technique that they're saying can help with that, and that they're going to sell it to the military. I mean, wow, it's pretty wild stuff. And so again, this is a Jeffrey Martin who is head of the Finders course and the symbolic consciousness, this and that thing, which there's not a lot of information online about. He doesn't seem to have much of a major social media presence. So to me, it makes it all the more odd that this is something that is popping up in the Jeffrey Epstein emails. Why did Jeffrey Epstein think he was worthy of his time? Why did he give him so much time and attention? I don't know, guys. Your guess is as good as mine. So before we go to our next story, the final Epstein stories of the day, I want to let you guys know about an event happening this weekend, the 21st and the 22nd of February. It's called Freedom Under Natural Law Conference, and the theme is Ignite Hearts and Minds. This is the Funnel 5, a free 2-day online event with presenters to inspire action towards truth, love, and freedom. All kinds of people: Brandon Martin, Nate Kapp, Chris Jansen, Corey Endrelat, Derrick Broze, Kat Waters, Dan Arnold. Some of these are friends of mine, Tyler Bloyer, Will Keller, and others. I encourage you guys to check this out if you're into natural law, or if you want to learn more about this whole natural law thing. I will not be speaking, but I will be sending a special message to the audience that will be played. It's a completely online event you can watch for free at freedomundernaturallaw.com. I will be featured, though. Some of my music, as 33, will be playing throughout the stream. They're going to have musical artists and performers and presentations. So check that out. Again, freedomundernaturallaw.com. Now, one of the other big stories that is going out there in MAGA world is these claims that Donald Trump has been once again exonerated of any wrongdoing within the new Epstein Files. And this is because of some things that are mentioned. So this is being reported by the Miami Herald. Trump told Palm Beach police chief everyone knew about Epstein. Maxwell was evil. President Trump has repeatedly maintained that he had no knowledge of Jeffrey Epstein's sex crimes. But in July 2006, just as Jeffrey Epstein's criminal sex charge became public, Trump called then Palm Beach police chief Michael Ryder to tell him that Epstein's activities with teenage girls were well known in both New York and Palm Beach. He says, quote, "Thank goodness you're stopping him. Everyone has known he's been doing this," told Ryder, according to a 2019 FBI interview with Ryder contained in the Justice Department's files. The interview, which was conducted in October 2019 and not previously reported, has shed new light on Trump's involvement in the early stages of the 2006 Jeffrey Epstein investigation. It also raises questions about how much Trump knew about Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's crimes. Ryder told FBI agents that Trump revealed the Epstein associate Maxwell was Epstein's, quote, operative, and that Trump said, quote, she is evil and to focus on her. Trump told Ryder that he was, quote, he was around Epstein once when teenagers were president and he, quote, got the hell out of there. Trump also told Ryder that he threw Epstein out of his Mar-a-Lago club. That stands in sharp contrast to what Trump told reporters in July 2019 when he was asked if he had any knowledge that Epstein had molested girls. No, I had no idea. I had no idea, Trump said at the time. Ryder, who retired as the chief in 2009, confirmed to the Miami Herald that he was interviewed by the FBI agents in 2019. He said the conversation with Trump happened in July 2006. An FBI official denied that Trump called Ryder. We're not aware of any corroborating evidence that the president contacted law enforcement 20 years ago. So, of course, this is the FBI under Donald Trump. So they're trying to save face and keep his story straight that he said, oh, I didn't know anything about this, except he was privately talking about this. So on one hand, Trump's trying to claim that he had no knowledge of this and he never knew anything Epstein was up to, even though people like myself have been pointing out he was friends with him for decades. And then on another hand, we have this document, this interview with Michael Ryder, who's the former police chief of Palm Beach, who I don't know why he would lie about it, saying that Trump did call him and that there was an interview. But now the FBI in 2026 under Trump is saying we have no corroborating evidence of the president contacting law enforcement 20 years ago. So you kind of have them trying to play both sides, because the thing is, what MAGA is trying to do is say, see, Trump knew about this. He was calling out Epstein and he went and told the police, which is not exactly what happened. Again, he was being apparently interviewed by Michael Ryder after he called them to share this information. But that is well after at least a decade. This is 2006. So more than a decade after we know that Trump had said famously that Epstein liked young girls and, you know, he was a terrific guy and all this kind of stuff. So they clearly were friends, and Trump saying he knew what was going on. Everybody knew what was going on. Well, why didn't he do anything about it? And also at the same time, Trump is in this alleged report, this 2006 report, he told Michael Ryder to focus on Maxwell because she was, you know, basically the evil and the one to go after. But then once she got indicted, and now Trump is considering potentially pardoning her. But in July 2020, Trump said, I just wish her well, frankly. I just wish her well. And then he was asked about it again later. He said, yeah, I just wish her well. You know, I wish anybody well. I'm just wishing people well. I don't know anything about her. When Trump clearly knew who she was. And at one point, according to this interview with the former police chief of Palm Beach, he said that Maxwell was evil and was the top of this. So the circumstances behind the 2019 interview have not been reported before. FBI agents came to Palm Beach at the former police chief's request to pick up 2 boxes of Epstein files that were found in the home of Joseph Recarey, who was the lead detective who handled the case. Now, this gets into a weird thing. Joseph Recarey, they say, had died of natural causes in May 2018. I remember when it was originally reported that he died, that it was like a sudden death. And his widow moved out of the area. I believe it was probably a mysterious death, but nobody has looked into it. And if his widow knows something, she's moved on and isn't talking. But the lead investigator, who was also the one that said that him and Mr. Ryder were under investigation when they were under surveillance as they started to investigate Epstein. But Joseph Recarey, he dies, and then he leaves behind boxes of files. Michael Ryder notifies the FBI after the boxes were given to him. And he told the FBI that one of the boxes contained an image copy of a laptop computer from Epstein's kitchen counter that had phone messages on it that Ryder had not seen before. The report did not say what else was in the boxes. The interview is 4 pages, mostly focusing on Ryder's summary of the Palm Beach investigation into Epstein, which began in 2003. So, yeah, and so that's the report from the Miami Herald. Here is the report itself. You can see the DOJ documents. Let me go ahead and search Trump. You can see Palm Beach County Country Club is a Jewish country club. A lot of wealthy people are there and flock together. Mar-a-Lago is a mix of everyone. Donald Trump told Joseph Recarey, even though they have it redacted, it's the guy who died, that he threw Epstein out of his club. Trump called the Palm Beach Police Department to tell them, thank goodness you're stopping him. Everyone has known he's been doing this. Trump told him people in New York knew Epstein was disgusting. Trump said Maxwell was Epstein's operative. Quote, she is evil and to focus on her. Trump told Joseph Ricari that he was around Epstein once when teenagers were present and he got the hell out of there. Trump was one of the very first people to call when people found out that they were investigating Epstein. So that's, again, where a lot of the MAGA people are saying, see, Derrick, he's the first person to call them. But yes, he's the first person to call him to say, thank you for doing this, after he'd been friends with him for decades. And in his own words, he said, everyone knew what was going on. And this is very similar to how my interview in 2018, December 2018, with attorney Brad Edwards at one of the civil trials, how he says in this interview that Trump was one of the first people to pick up the phone and to talk to him. You know, when he started calling around and asking questions, Trump answered and he gave information and he said the information checked out. Now, of course, the thing about that, as I've explained numerous times, is every time freaking MAGA and all kinds of people try to, you know, take my work and use it as a defense of Trump, Brad Edwards said in his, to me, but also in his book, Relentless Pursuit, which you can find online and you can look it up, he later said that he didn't realize how close Epstein and Trump's relationship were. And he said that what Trump shared with him was mostly just rumors. So even though MAGA tries to use my old interview, and then now they're trying to use this Miami Herald report and these DOJ files that Trump called the Palm Beach Police Department as evidence that Trump was the one who, you know, started the investigation, because there's this whole mythology that Trump was, you know, secretly an informant and he helped bring down Epstein, even though he never actually did that. That actually isn't what happened. The reality shows that Trump knew what was going on for decades and did nothing about it. And he didn't pick up the phone to call the police or to call the attorneys until after it became public that Epstein was being, was about to be charged. And then, of course, he was ready to throw him under the bus. So that's, you know, very principled of him. Okay, on to the next story here. Now, these ones, again, are just bits and pieces here. Now, I know you guys have probably heard about this torture video going around where there was an email referencing that says something like, thanks for the torture video, or I enjoyed it, or something along those lines. Well, Thomas Massie, as you guys know, he's been working to get more redactions and more information out there. And he says that this was last February 10th, last week. He says, in response to my post on X today, DOJ unredacted an FBI file that labels 2 individuals as co-conspirators, unredacted a file that lists several men who might be implicated. 3, tacitly admitted that Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayam was the sender of the torture video. We do have a name of that, and I just want to update you guys in case you didn't see that, because I know there's a lot of people paying attention to this whole the torture video claim. Now let's go ahead and just search his name. He's Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayam, former CEO of DP World. And, let's go ahead and see if the media is even mentioning this. If we searched his name in torture, Dubai Port's boss resigns amid fallout from Epstein Files. 3 days ago, CEO of Dubai's largest port replaced after ties to Epstein Files revealed. Powerful Dubai tycoon replaced after DOJ reveals sexually explicit emails with Epstein. And here's pictures of him. Look like they're like cooking together. And let's see if I search torture. Yep. The messages between Epstein and him reveal an intimate year-long friendship replete with misogynistic descriptions of women and girls, sexually explicit material, business proposals, and a reference to an alleged torture video that has drawn scrutiny in the U.S. Congress. And in 2009, Epstein wrote a short email to a recipient that the DOJ had initially reacted saying, "Where are you? Are you okay? I love the torture video." And this was sent to him. And as I just said, Thomas Massie, he was able to redact the name, that the recipient was a sultan. And then Attorney General Todd Blanche said the recipient's name appeared in a separate unredacted file and linked to an email from bin Sulayam. It's unclear what torture video Epstein is referring to and then email Blanche linked to. So it's making the mainstream. I mean, at least that's happening, which is kind of fucking crazy. Even just that they're having to mention like, oh, some guy was sending a torture video to Epstein. Oh, guys, we know it was dark, and it continues to be dark. Now, there's other pieces like this one. This is brand new. Trump insider Tom Barrack kept in regular contact with Jeffrey Epstein for years, files show. So there's more people around Trump who are involved in, keeping up with Epstein. Now, this one gets a little darker. This is coming from Vigilant Citizen. I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but I want you guys to look at this. The coded journals in the Epstein files that hide a teenage girl's horrific story. Found inside dataset 12 of the Epstein Files are journals written by a teenage victim using cryptic messages. Once decoded, these texts tell the horrific story of a slave who was turned into a human incubator for babies she never saw again. Here's a look at this obscure part of the Epstein Files. On January 30th, the DOJ published 3.5 million pages. Inside is the zip file is dataset 12, is one of the many rabbit holes found in there. It says, indeed, among thousands of documents in the zip file created by attorneys are scans of journals kept by a teenage girl whose name has been redacted. Using magazine cutouts and handwritten coded messages, the journals document a horrific story of sexual slavery and repeated pregnancies at 16 years old. Going through the writings of this deeply traumatized girl, a fact becomes immediately apparent. Epstein and his circle were involved in much more than soliciting minors. As the journals disturbingly document, they were using their sex slaves to breed babies who were taken from their mothers minutes after they were born. Now, I want to say this is Vigilant Citizen's interpretation of the journals. I will ask you to go read the journals, and you can search them, the DOJ documents, by looking for these keywords to decide for yourself. The journals. Glued in one journal are cards celebrating this girl's 16th birthday. She was already under Epstein's control at a while at this point. It says, old enough to drive, too young to go anywhere anywhere fun. Happy sweet 16. I love you. Happy birthday. And I think that's from Jeff. The journals were a way for the girl to process her horrific experiences while expressing creativity. The result is a heartbreaking journey through a teenage girl's mind faced with absolute monsters. Flights of fancy, yachts, horror. The more you pay, the more you get. Is this false, true, crazy? Who knows how many times, more times than I can count. It says the journals are made of words and phrases from magazines combined with handwritten editions of her own. In the page above, the girl turned the magazine headline, Flight of Fancy, into Flights plus Yachts of Horror. Underneath is a coded message to be read vertically, 2 lines at a time. So it says, they are always flights of horror, whether it's with Jeffrey, Mr. Leonis, Mr. Case, Mr. Snyder, the Gregories, Mr. Colgan, or one being borrowed by a seemingly good federal worker, even rented. It is all horror, and nothing is as it seems. I'm so confused by everything, and people expect you to be good, like even old senators like George Mitchell, who you think would be good like a grandpa, are bad. Mr. Kimsey is deranged. The answer is C, crazy. It all is. She names prominent businessmen, politicians, and celebrities. In other pages, she describes how elite people such as Leon Black violently raped her while using a belt or biting her. On other pages are glued poems by Sylvia Plath. In each case, the girl underlined the passages that particularly applied to her, such as, I have been drugged and raped, 7 hours knocked right out of my mind. Victims of his own. These are all the things that are on the screen. 1 minute I was nobody, the next high excitement videos, a child, a risky power play, sad, he wanted, she wanted. These are basically cutouts from magazines. While these journals are already horrific, subsequent ones get worse. The documents the girl turning into a, quote, human incubator. She is gone and she won't be coming back. And then there's a picture of a ultrasound. Child, she's got a poem of child. It says several journals contain baby sonograms along with disturbing words, poems, and coded messages. Some of the girl's journals describe her repeated pregnancies, which all ended with babies disappearing. Epstein would describe this process as playing a game. This girl lost every single time. Here's the translation of this coded on this page, which is all in red. Close your eyes, close your eyes, close your eyes. Don't speak, she doesn't talk. I can't stop shaking and it's been a week. A decision was made, but I can't tell Jeffrey. These things happen. Why didn't I close my eyes fast enough? The doctor was different again. I think from Israel. He had kind eyes, but didn't speak directly to me. This was different. A shot and those rod-like things had a hook and so much pain. Ghislaine said to push all the pain away. I don't understand. Blood and water all over the bed, and she was right, like a feeling when your tummy hurts and you have to push. She said to close my eyes and hand over my eyes, but I didn't close them because of these tiny cries. I'm so lost. I saw between her fingers this tiny head and body in the doctor's hand. It reached its tiny arm and had a tiny foot. I closed my eyes and no more tiny cries. Jesus, how fucked up is this? Oh, this is the next page of her journal. One page is glued a poem titled Stillborn. The girl drew an X through the word still because her baby had been born. The coded message at the bottom says, in the hall, Ghislaine said she was beautiful. She was, not is. She was a beautiful girl. I heard her. Where is she? Why didn't she stop whimpering? She was born. I heard the tiny cries. I can't do this anymore. In short, the girl explained how she gave birth to a baby accompanied by a doctor who might be from Israel and Ghislaine Maxwell. She would tell her to close her eyes so she wouldn't see the baby. The newborn baby was taken away. This isn't a one-time thing. The girl went through repeated pregnancies. Another coded message says, he was right, a couple of months and 2 pink lines with a hold on being with others until after it was positive. I want to die. Why didn't she protect me? As long as I'm wearing what you want. There is no respect for me as a human. I am nothing but your property and incubator. You only trust me when I am under your complete control. I will never trust another man ever. I am the only one who provides and sacrifices everything. I give and give out of terror, and you all take from me. You need to continue. And it goes on. It goes on from there. I mean, there's more. And she talks about getting pregnant again. She talks about being pregnant multiple times. The final page of the journal sums up the mental state of the person who is completely broken. There's another picture of a ultrasound, a sonogram. It says, I am such a monster. I didn't console her. I can't unhear her screams. They haunt me. I can't even bring myself to look at her. I'm a monster. I deserve to be haunted by her screams. I am sorry. I am so broken. After such trauma, the girl became dissociative. She recalls in horror what she did not console her baby. While this was her way of coping, she nevertheless felt like a monster. On one page, the girl glued an Allstate insurance ad that depicts a courtroom with the words, our stand, you should never be here alone. Underneath the photo, the girl wrote, he should. And yeah, so I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. I'm sure some people will dismiss it. You know, it is nothing. It seems like something, my friends. Now, 2 stories left on the Epstein thing. We're out of here for today. Thank you guys for being with me. I know this is a lot of information related to Epstein, but hopefully it's bringing you some of the pieces of puzzle you're not seeing everywhere. You guys remember Epstein allegedly killed himself, and we were shown this picture right here out of something that looks like a freaking, out of a movie, a freaking movie set of Epstein's head body laying down. It was almost like somebody wanted us to see this as proof, but a lot of people immediately started looking at the nose and the ears and were like, that's not Epstein. Things look different. You know, that's a fake body. And at first, you know, some of us, even conspiracy theorists, like, come on, guys, like, he killed himself. You know, not everything's fake. But one of the things that stood out, if you remember this, in the morning or before the early hours of August 10th, 2019, somebody posted on 4chan, which is, of course, the troll, message board where QAnon and other things have started. So not too many people take it seriously. But somebody had posted on there saying that Epstein had been switched out in a van and that his death was, staged to be a suicide. And then the post appeared and 1 hour before Epstein's death was reported public. I remember this was going viral in some conspiracy circles. And it's like, okay, somebody posts about this on 4chan. I guess it's a crazy coincidence, but how do you prove something like that? Is there really any way to prove it? I don't think so. I don't think we really can. So it's hard to know. But then we get these new Epstein documents. And in these Epstein documents, we start to see different things. Like we get to know that the person behind the post was Roberto Grijalva, who was a correctional officer at the MCC, the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan. So this actually was posted by a guard working at the place where Epstein was held. So that changes everything. So let's go ahead and review what he wrote. This is what was written on the morning hours of August 10th, 2019, before Epstein's death was announced. Quote, not saying, you can see this picture here. Let me open it up for those watching. This is what 4chan looks like. And so what he wrote was, not saying anything after this, please do not try to dox me. But last night, after 4:15 account, which is 4 a.m, they took him medical in a wheelchair, front cuffed, but not one triage nurse says they spoke to him. Next thing we know, a van shows up. We do not do releases on weekends unless a judge orders it. Next thing we know, he's put in a single man cell and hangs himself, ? Here's the thing. The trip van did not sign in, and we did not record the plate number. And a guy in a green dress military outfit was in the back of the van, according to the tower guy who let him through the gate. You guys, I'm shaking right now, but I think they switched him out. The post alleged that Epstein had been removed, restrained in a wheelchair, and was taken out on a van. And then later on, of course, that day, we are, we're basically told Jeffrey Epstein had died. And when that did make the news, it was basically made fun of. Like, so here's August 13, 2019, 4chan user posted about Jeffrey Epstein's death before it was public. Authorities now want to know who was behind the post, which contained medically accurate details about the financier and accused sex trafficker. Of course, they didn't mention that the person made claims, but what happened was eventually the grand jury a grand jury was convened to go after this person. U.S. Attorney Jeffrey Berman of the Southern District of New York opened a grand jury investigation, and he issued subpoenas to 4chan, Apple, AT&T, and Citibank. The goal was to identify the individual behind the post, and eventually they did find his name. According to the newly released documents, Grijalva, his name appears unredacted in Citibank records tied to the subpoena response, and he actually is was a guard at the prison. So that really brings up some questions like, was he telling the truth? Did he really see what he claimed? Has anybody talked to him? I'm going to try to track him down and see what we can find out about this, because there's clearly more to the puzzle, despite the mainstream just wanting us to dismiss this as just another conspiracy theory. The guy posted accurate stuff before it was announced that Epstein was dead, which means he may have actually seen Epstein wheeled out in a wheelchair, which means Jeffrey Epstein could be alive. All right. Now let's talk about how this is playing out in the international scene outside of the United States, because there's a lot of people mentioned in these files, not just U.S. politicians and celebrities and things of that sort. I kind of mentioned earlier India, there's scandals going on here, but it's also the UK. The Jeffrey Epstein files are Peter Mandelson's final disgrace. The Labour politician and strategist was a great survivor. Then came revelations that he passed sensitive government information to Epstein during the financial crisis. For much of the past 6 months, Peter Mandelson, the veteran British politician, has been holed up in a rented country house in a picturesque valley in Wiltshire, about 100 miles west of London. He retreated there after the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer fired him last September from a post as the UK's ambassador to the US following the release of emails by Epstein, DOJ relating to Epstein, and pledged to support him despite the late financier's conviction. So he's already kind of suffering. But now, for the first time in his career, Mandelson was disgraced, and things got a lot worse for him at the end of this last month when the DOJ released even more emails revealing that he wasn't merely friendly with Epstein. In 2009, 2010, during his time as a government minister, he passed sensitive government information to Epstein. Referring to the emails, Mandelson told a journalist from the Times of London who visited him in Wiltshire that none of them indicate wrongdoing or misdemeanor on my part. But now he's the subject of a police investigation into whether the links amount to a misconduct in public office. So politicians are going down in the UK. We've got Norway's self-image cracking amid political elite expose in Epstein files. Norwegians have been forced to rethink what moral ground they really stand on as a nation, as concerning connections between political figures and royals to Jeffrey Epstein challenge its no hierarchy self-image. Norway's National Authority for Investigation and Prosecution for Economic Environmental Crime charged former Prime Minister Thorbjørn Jagland with gross corruption and searched his apartment in Oslo. The high-profile politician saw his immunity revoked by the Council of Europe, and they're looking into whether, quote, gifts, travel, and loans were received in connection with his position based on his correspondence with Epstein. He denies any breach of the law. Norwegian diplomatic power couple Mona Juul and husband Terry, I don't know how to pronounce these names, sorry, Rod Larson, are also under investigation. Juul stepped back as ambassador to Jordan and Iraq last week after Norwegian media reported her children would receive $5 million each from Jeffrey Epstein, and according to an apparent will signed by Epstein. And there's other Børge Brende, who is the former foreign affairs minister of Norway and the current president and CEO of the World Economic Forum, and Norwegian Crown Princess Mette-Marit both communicated with Epstein following his conviction in 2008. And that's pretty interesting, the WEF, World Economic Forum connection there. But so all kinds of Norwegian politicians and royalty, and that's not even mentioning the son. Let me see if I can find him. That the Crown Princess's son, Marius Borge Høiby, is on trial facing 38 charges, including sexual assault, domestic violence, and drugs. So that guy, that's a whole nother story for those who've been following that. But scandals rocking Norway relating to Epstein, and then Lithuania, an example of one country that's actually trying to do something about it since the U.S. won't hold anybody accountable. Lithuania launches human trafficking probe relating to Epstein files. Lithuanian prosecutors said on Tuesday they are launching an investigation into potential human trafficking after new documents relating to Epstein included references to prominent Lithuanians. Lithuania's prosecutor general said in a statement, an objective and thorough investigation of the circumstances of doubtful legality, as well as an international legal cooperation, is only possible if a pre-trial investigation is launched, Lithuania's prosecutor general's office said in a statement, without naming any suspects or specific crimes. And so, yeah, there's some places in the world where they're actually trying to hold politicians accountable. It doesn't really seem like the U.S. is one of those places, but at least some places in the world are taking this serious. And that's it for today, guys. I know that's a lot of Epstein news. Hopefully that's different from what you've been seeing and hearing elsewhere. Obviously, as I said, I'm in the files. My work's in the files. There might be some Finders connections, or at least this Jeffrey Martin guy and his Finders course, or some really weird things. You got the torture video and the guy being named. You got these, human incubator journals of somebody apparently being impregnated multiple times and the baby's being taken away. Scandals breaking internationally. It's a lot, guys. It's a lot going on. And I just want to invite you guys to always, remember to pull yourself back in. Pull yourself back in. Really try to center yourself. Yeah, I know there's a lot going on out there. I don't share this information to try to overwhelm you. I'm just trying to bring you the facts. And at the end of the day, we can only do what we can to take care of ourselves and our hearts and minds. And I want to invite you guys to do that. Don't, if listening and following every Epstein development stresses you out, then don't do it, guys. It's not worth it. It's really just not worth your time, your energy to get yourself all stressed out and overworked by this kind of things. But I'm trying to, do my best to get you guys to be aware of what's happening and to really try to dissect the minutia, dissect the propaganda, the left and the right and the up and down and all this stuff, and get you to see that despite all this, there are solutions. The solutions that start in your own heart, your own mind, your own community, your own backyard. Yes, it's important to see that the cabal is being exposed of pedophiles and all kinds of crazy stuff, but I don't know if there's going to be actual accountability. Like I said, maybe a couple of countries are trying to do something about it. We'll see if anything actually comes out of it. Instead, we got to find accountability in our own hearts, in our own minds, in our own communities. Fuck them. Fuck the pedophiles and the Satanists and the Jeffrey Epsteins. Yes, let's pray and hope and work towards accountability, but I don't know if it's going to happen. So instead, let's put our energy into exit and build, voluntarism, natural law, focusing on what we can do in our own backyards, in our own communities, and in our own hearts and our own minds. Because if we don't, and we let them control, as John Trudell used to say, they're mining our minds. Just like they mine the planet for its resources, they're mining our minds for our mental resources. And this space between your skull here is the most important real estate. If they can get in there and they can occupy that space and they can get you pulling yourself in all kinds of directions and stressed out and overworked and tired and angry and, arguing with your neighbors, then they've already won, my friends. They've already won. So please don't let yourself be fooled by these psychopaths. Let's continue to work for a better world. Just a couple of notes before I'm out of here. I want to let you know one of the best ways to support our platform, our show here, is to go to theconsciousresistance.com and buy yourself some shirts. We got 8 different designs, more to come. And it's not on the website yet, but I will let you know. Some of you have asked for it. You can now buy all of the shirts in a 100% USA cotton version. It is a gray, kind of dark gray shirt. That's the only one we have available at the moment. So you can get any of these designs, any size, in a dark gray USA cotton. It will be added to the website soon, but if you go ahead and order it now and just make a note that you want the 100% cotton, and that's another great way to support us and to rock a powerful message and to share it with your friends. Of course, you can also go to theconsciousresistance.com/invest. You can support us on Buy Me a Coffee, on the Substack, or via crypto. You can also send to my cash and love mail and hate mail to my P.O. box. Again, theconsciousresistance.com/invest. Final note, you can go to civil.com/TCR and you can watch the final episode of the Pyramid of Power. It is out now on Civil exclusively. You can sign up for just $50 a year, $5 a month. You can use the code TCR20 to get a 20% discount on that. And if you don't want to pay for it, it will be available for free starting on March 6th. So stay tuned for that, guys. And that's going to do it for today, guys. Until next time, remember, my friends, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free. I'll see you soon. Enjoy this song from Dub Effects.
Okay, let's go.
How do we look?
You look good.
Well, dig this. It's all inside of you.
Say again now. Athens. Yo. So now I'm floating down this rhythm with you, trying to figure out what my mind could do. I'm in a state where I could just pursue. I love this sacred geometry. My curiosity has got me. So I open up my eyes. I'm looking down as I'm floating through the sky. I see the ground and I'm waving it goodbye with a smile on my face. Wait, I'm way too high. How did I get here? Where am I going? I'm getting scared here. Why am I floating? What if I disappear into the unknowing? Maybe this is just my fear keeping me broken. Now I've awoken, I'm open to the spirit. No, I won't inhibit. My mind, I push the limit. I'm totally implicit, finally within it. Now I've got the knowledge, all I need to do is bring it back. Wait, what was I saying? Where was I going? Why was I praying? Am I insane? Maybe, is this another game, or am I crazy? I need to refrain from thinking about maybe. Confidence in my mind is gonna save me. So I'ma sit and meditate in this higher state. Let this medicine regenerate me. It's all inside of you. You know just what to do. It's all inside of you, my love. Up in a daydream, nothing really is what it may seem. My mind shooting light like a ray beam, and opening my heart is the main theme. And everyone around me's on the same team, cause psychedelic therapy's the regime. My heart is a racing like a chase scene, and even though it sounds kinda extreme, well, I can feel the love shining through. I feel it for you, every man, woman, child, every animal and mineral. I feel so connected to you, it's so true. Love is the only way through. Now I see it all before me, I'm a guarantee. I'm a devotee to the we. There's no I in team. I'ma push forward for the dream to let this all be trauma free. It's all inside of you. You know just what to do. It's all inside of you, my love, my love. Oh, my. Well, no, go.
Since 2012, the Conscious Resistance Network has been an independent media organization focused on empowering individuals through education, philosophy, health, and community organizing. We work to create a world where corporate and state power do not rule over the lives of free human beings. Our motto is leading by example and helping others in their pursuit of freedom. Visit theconsciousresistance.com to find our articles, documentaries, interviews, podcasts, books, and more. Remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free.